published 1954 the 11th of December 2017, updated 1354 the 12th of December 2017. Many pupils at the school in Brighton, East Sussex, are now being forced to walk to and around school in just jumpers. Parents have been left furious today as hundreds of schools remained shut for a second day following Britain's coldest night of the year so far, after temperatures fell to 13°C. Snow left more than 2,300 schools closed yesterday and wreaked havoc on the UK's roads and transport networks after more than a foot of the white stuff fell in some areas, leading to a chaotic Black Monday. In Brighton, parents slammed to school after they were told children could not wear their own winter coats despite sub-zero temperatures. Many are now being forced to walk to and around school in just jumpers. The parents claim Patcham High School are forcing them to buy flimsy, school-issue jackets for the winter, and any other coats worn at school will be confiscated. More than 48 hours after the heaviest snow fell, scores of schools across the country are closed for a second day as the cold weather, which left the UK chillier than Moscow where temperatures fell to just 4°C, continues to cause disruption. Campaign groups for parents said the decision to close so many schools was frankly ridiculous, but union leaders defended the decision to close en masse, saying teachers faced an impossible task. Graham White, of the National Education Union, said head teachers are in an impossible situation, open and risk injury to staff or pupils, or close and risk the wrath of parents who now have their children at home. Schools are for education, not child-minding. It is very unfortunate that parents are inconvenienced by snow and school closures, but safety is paramount. In Brighton, Carrie Barnes-Dredge, 41, says her Year 11 daughter is being made to take her own coat off at the gates of the school. The mother of four, who works for a housing association, says her girl already has two perfectly decent winter coats, and is reluctant to pay £32 for something which will only be used for a couple of months. Colmore Junior School in Birmingham is among the hundreds of schools that remain closed. In Britain today, Blackwood Primary School near Cardiff, which is one of hundreds of schools to have been shut across the country, Shay said, "They're trying to make us buy these new coats, but it's pointless. My daughter has two already and she's only there for a few more months. The kids can wear other coats to the gates, but if they're on show on school grounds, their coats are confiscated until the end of the day. If there are fire alarms, they're not allowed to put a coat on unless it's the school one, and that has happened while it's been cold. If her coat was confiscated, my daughter wouldn't have time to collect it until the end of the day, when she has to be at the bus stop on time, otherwise I'd have to drive and collect her. This is leaving kids without coats and I don't know what to do about it. Really, it's ridiculous. There are two available, a wintry one and a rain jacket, and we went into the school to complain, but they told us tough, that's our rules. My youngest son would like to go to that school and no problem if they're just starting, but when you're talking a few months it's pointless. My daughter has a hacking cough and this will make it worse, it's freezing. She already has a bag with all her school stuff, another one with her PE kit, and a third with her bulky coat and just isn't plausible. One of her friends actually bought a blanket and walked through the gates with three of them wrapped in it so they wouldn't get cold. A padded coat from the school's approved retailer costs £32, a mid-range waterproof coat with a fleece is £28, and a lightweight raincoat costs £14.90. Head teacher John McKee has hit back at parents, and says the policy is a form of poverty-proofing which helps children from disadvantaged backgrounds. He claims the cost of uniform remains one of the cheapest in the city, even with the added cost of a coat. The headmaster, who has run the school since last year, said the reason we've done this is because we want all students to be equal. It's part of our school values and we don't want any pupil to stand out because they're wearing a different type of coat. It's an extension of our existing uniform policy. We want to support students so nobody feels isolated because they can't afford a designer jacket." Parents and schools discussed the closures on Twitter today, with many children having a second day with no lessons. It's about poverty-proofing. We don't want to exclude children from a disadvantaged background and we don't want any children to be singled out for that. Children were never allowed students to wear outside jackets within the school anyway. They always had to remove them inside buildings, and now they just have to take them off at the gate and put them in their bag. Everything I do here is in the children's best interest. There are always going to be gaps in whatever inform we enforce, and we're trying to mitigate against anything that's going to make a child feel uncomfortable. If the child is outside and they're cold, they need to wear a coat. I haven't got any hard evidence, but there are many children who have chosen not to wear coats, whether school coats or not, for years, and I do feel that some kids weren't wearing them because didn't have the right coat. We are trying to help and support the pupils and make a positive difference to their lives. But angry parents have taken to social media to blast the school. Elaine McCulloch said, "What a ridiculous policy. Money is tight for all parents, so to buy multiple coats is too much to ask. The coat they wear will not have any impact on their education, which is what they are at school for." Kate Cohen added, "My children go here and I've had to buy them the school coats. It's ridiculous as they needed new coats anyway for outside school as they won't wear the school ones out. It's cost me over £120 for 4 coats." The bright blue in this map shows the current coverage of lying snow across parts of Scotland, England and Wales. Highways England has been working to keep motorways and major roads clear of snow and ice. It said thousands of tons of salt has been spread on the M5, M6, M40, M42, M69, and the A5 and A49, with Britain crews also targeting the M1. Samantha Fellingham said, "I think the head of Patcham needs to re-review this ludicrous idea. What parent can afford 2 coats, one for school and one outside of school? Maybe if that is the case he makes arrangements for the children to be equipped with his idea and the school pays towards it. Can't see that happening." Weather warnings for snow and ice are in place until 11 a.m. today, covering large parts of the UK, including London. Also, if the teachers don't agree with the idea of having the school coats, then what hope is there that the idiot of a headmaster can make this decision? No other schools do this, so why should he dictate this? His head needs his head looking at. I'd like to see him in a school coat. Nearly 80 schools are listed as closed in Staffordshire, with many citing untreated paths and fears that snow will have compacted into ice as reasons for keeping the gates closed. Gloucestershire, which saw around 200 schools closed yesterday, will have 80 schools closed today, while more than 90 will be closed in neighbouring Herefordshire. Pupils at 123 primary schools and 25 secondary schools in Shropshire will have a second day off owing to the weather, while in Wales hundreds of schools will be shut today, with Caerphilly and Powys particularly affected. Campaigners claimed schools in Britain are closing too easily in the modern day. Margaret Morrissey, of campaign group Parents Out Loud, said, "I think the schools are too quick to close. It is the easy option. I am of the older generation, and went to school in the 40s and 50s in the East Midlands, where we had a lot of snow, and I don't think I can remember having one day off because of the weather. Parents have to take a day off or find childcare. I understand that in some rural areas where it is really bad, it would be dangerous. But I think the decision to close all of the schools in a city as big as Birmingham is quite frankly ridiculous. What would happen if countries like Russia did this? Their children would never get an education." Craig Lingman, from Parents Want a Say, said head teachers have double standards by stopping parents taking their children out of lessons in term time but shutting schools following a small blanket of snow. He told the Daily Telegraph, "When I was a child you had to have snow up to your waist before you would shut the school down. Their comeback will be yes, it's health and safety. It hasn't happened in a significant way for more than 200 years. But today the Thames has frozen over once again, albeit only in a section of the river in Oxfordshire. Astonishing photographs emerged today of the mighty river iced over at Osney Mead in Oxford during the night. Part of the River Thames covered with ice at Benson Lock in Oxfordshire, as Britain had its coldest night of the year. It evoked memories of winters long ago when it was so perishing that people used to skate on the Thames. The Thames has frozen over at least 23 times since the 1300s, with the last occurrence in 1814. In the past, a number of festivals known as the River Thames Frost Fairs sprang up on the river. The period from the mid-14th to 19th century in Europe was known as the Little Ice Age due to the severity of the climate. A dog walker crosses the weir as the sun rises over the River Thames at Benson Lock in Oxfordshire this morning, and when the conditions were right, Londoners headed onto the river in celebration. The first recorded frost fair took place until 1608, although the Thames had frozen over several times in the 16th century. It is said Henry VIII travelled all the way from central London to Greenwich by sleigh along the river in the winter of 1536. Elizabeth I is also thought to have taken walks on the ice during the winter of 1564. The last Frost Fair was held in 1814. It took place from February 1 to 5, and the ice was so thick at the time that an elephant crossing was held at Blackfriars. All council-run schools in Birmingham were shut yesterday following the hazardous conditions, but the blanket closure is not in force for today. Writing on Twitter yesterday, Matt, from Birmingham, said, "So today I lost 5 hours of work because I had to drop and pick up my daughter from her mates, all because of a bit of snow." Birmingham Council said was really bad. Children lose a day of education, and as parents, most of us, lose a lot of money because of a dumb decision. A man has been winched aboard a Coast Guard rescue helicopter after being injured in an 80 feet fall from a frozen Snowdon Ridge. Rescuers trekked through snow and cloud to the summit of Garnedugan to find him. Llanberis Mountain and rescue team was called out to the man who had back, leg and head injuries after the plunge on Crib YDDYSGL last night. An app was used to find his location, and rescuers trekked through snow and cloud to the summit of Garnedugan and down the ridge to him. He was treated for his injuries and sledged down the peak on a stretcher, then winched into a helicopter. The man was flown to hospital at Bangor. The rescue took 5 hours and involved 16 rescue team volunteers. Gil Albus, from Sutton Coldfield, added Birmingham appears to be paralyzed. Schools are closed, refuse collection is off, hospitals are cancelling anything not urgent, and buses and trains are running sporadic services. Time to put the heating on and play some music, I think. Leslie Taylor said, I live in Birmingham and not only have the schools closed, there are no buses running in my part of the city, so we are totally cut off. My son's school is 4 miles from where we live. The council has not graded anywhere near us, and they have also cancelled the bin collections, so instead of having a go at us parents and teachers, have a go at Birmingham City Council, because they are the ones that have let the roads get icy. None of us want to be cut off from the rest of the city, and I am sure the teachers want to teach today, but if there is no way to get there, then they can't attend, and neither can the children. Meanwhile, a Tory council leader has come under fire from parents for criticizing the closure of schools because of the snow, saying there were no excuses. Conservative leader of Swindon Council David Rinnard tweeted, there are no excuses that so many Swindon schools are closed when the roads are perfectly passable, causing huge inconvenience to parents. More than 30 schools around the Wiltshire town were closed yesterday amid staff shortages in the cold snap. But the comment from the leader of Swindon Borough Council drew a flurry of criticism from parents. Twitter user Mrs. W22 said, shame on you for publicly judging them for making what they felt was the best, safest decision for all their students and staff. Perhaps you should try walking to some of the local primaries, as so many parents have no choice but to do, and see how judgmental you feel then. Mr. Rinnard, who said his priority was the best interests of the children and parents, wrote back, so why are so many Wiltshire schools still open? Another Twitter user, Sarah Fenwick, wrote, huge inconvenience to parents. But schools are not a childcare facility. The safety of children and staff is more important. I don't think one day is going to affect their education. The teachers don't take these decisions lightly, and I'm sure they would much rather be open. Mr. Rinnard responded, of course safety is paramount, but you can't get an education if you're not at school, and plenty of other schools have opened. The weather is going to be much worse tonight, so I expect they'll be closed again tomorrow. And a third Twitter user called Colin P. also slammed the councillor, writing, wow, every time I think you can't be more short-sighted, David, you go out of your way to prove me wrong. Labour rival Jim Robbins said, I was very surprised to see David Rinnard's tweet. I know how much head teachers and senior staff struggle over these tough decisions. They have to weigh up the chances of staff coming in from long distances, how I see the schools and paths may be, and will there be sufficient numbers of staff available to offer safe staff-student ratios. For the council leader to write such an ill-informed tweet, especially when he used to be the cabinet member in charge of children's services and schools, beggars belief. The dilemma faced by head teachers was illustrated in a recent letter to parents of pupils at Northgate High School in Ipswich, Suffolk. Joint head teachers David Hutton and Rowena Mackey wrote, we would like to stress in response to previous media coverage that closing the school is not a decision that is taken lightly by head teachers. As a group, we dislike having to make a decision before 7 a.m. that has the potential to make us appear foolish later that same day. Parental opinion is typically split, with roughly equal numbers complaining on snowy days if we closed the school or keep it open. In making our decision prior to the start of a school day, we will consider the safety of the school site, which will be fully inspected, and the likely danger to pupils, students and staff in making their journey to school. Odds on a white Christmas in a major city in Britain have now fallen as low as 12 following the recent snowfall. The cheapest price in a single area, from Coral, is $74 in Aberdeen, followed by Glasgow and Edinburgh at $21 and Newcastle at $52. Leeds and Manchester, having snow on Christmas Day, are both priced at $31, while London is on offer at $41. Coral is also offering $12 on a white Christmas at any of the 13 major cities the bookmaker is taking bets on. A Coral spokesman said London hasn't had a white Christmas for a long time now, but after the snow over the weekend, punters are rushing to get their bets on that this year as the one. An odds checker spokesman added, London bedecked in snow is nothing short of a magical sight, and our bookmakers fancy at least a 40% chance of a white Christmas across the city. We have to keep in mind that while many of our Year 7 to 11 pupils can travel in by foot, the vast majority of our staff cannot. The likelihood of having inadequate supervision clearly adds to safety concerns when conditions underfoot are dangerous and pupil behavior is influenced by the possibility of ice and snow-related activities. If the school is open at the start of the day and it begins to snow heavily during the day, our considerations will be slightly different. In this situation, we will weigh up the relative safety of pupils who are already on the site, compared to their likely safety. If sent home, we will also try to judge if their journey home is likely to be more dangerous if delayed until the end of the school day. In this respect, the decision may be different for sixth form students, many of whom travel long distances through rural areas. Lee Abbott, head teacher at Hillside Primary School in Ipswich, said, "I think schools should do all they can to open in all weathers, other than when it is impossible to open the site safely, for example, boiler failure, when it is impossible to clear paths, and when there are insufficient staff to teach classes." However, it is a very challenging decision for heads, and a decision to close is never taken lightly. At Hillside, we risk assess the site, and the staff's journeys to school, to try and put appropriate plans in place to ensure the school opens because that is best for our learners and their families. The Trades Union Congress told employers not to force staff to make hazardous journeys into work today, saying firms should give staff advice on what to do when snow, ice and a lack of public transport stops them getting in. TUC General Secretary Francis Agrati said many companies now have bad weather strategies in place, including policies covering what parents should do if schools close and they have no alternative childcare. The big freeze is biting, but hundreds of grit bins are being removed by council bosses in Fife. They say they need to save cash, but locals have reacted with disbelief. The grit bins have been taken away from streets throughout the region as part of a cost-cutting review, and will not be redeployed elsewhere. Fife Council's policy is now to provide grit bins on minor housing estate roads and footpaths not on the primary gritting network, with bins on the priority routes being removed since they are already receiving the highest level of road gritting service. However, the move has not gone down well with many residents. Pointing out that 260 grit bins have been axed in North Fife alone, Liberal Democrat group leader and Taybridge head councillor Tim Brett urged council chiefs to look again at the issue. He said, "I've had complaints over the last 10 days or so from literally every part of my ward. I'm a great believer in providing people with the tools to do things themselves if they want to. While the council can say we're gritting the roads, my experience is that the council is very slow to grit the pavements at our end of the kingdom, and that's a major worry for me." But Derek Crow, the council's roads and transportation service manager, said, "We have a budget-saving target to reduce the cost of Fife's winter service, including grit bins. The main cost of the grit bin service is not their provision, but the servicing of them, and if we just redeploy them, we will not achieve the budget saving." By comparison, the provision of grit bins is much higher in Fife than neighboring councils, and there are now so many, circa 4,000, that, in the event of a severe weather event, it is unlikely that sufficient resources could be enabled to meet the policy standard of refills within 5 days. She said it is essential that employers don't force staff to make dangerous journeys for the sake of presenteeism. For many employees, the bad weather will have made their commute virtually impossible. Sports fixtures began to fall victim to the weather today, with tonight's FA Cup second-round replay between Carlisle United and Gillingham postponed because of a frozen pitch at Brunton Park in Cumbria. Also falling foul to the cold snap was tonight's second-round replay between Crewe Alexandra and Blackburn Rovers at Grusty Road, which has been put back 24 hours to tomorrow. Meanwhile, non-league team Hereford FC has asked volunteers to help them remove a layer of 4 inches 10 centimeters of snow from its Edgar Street pitch in order to get Thursday night's FA Cup replay on against Fleetwood Town. Met Office meteorologist Craig Snell said it's still possible that it could go lower, but in Shawbury and Shropshire